Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inconvenient Truths. I'm your host, Jennifer Zheng. State media in China just dropped a bombshell article praising the so-called socialist transformation from 70 years ago. It shocked many Chinese people at home and abroad. What does this mean for private business owners and China's future? Today, let's break it down. On June 19th, Xinhua news agency published a high-profile article titled "The Three Major Transformations: An Unprecedented Profound Social Change." It carried the label "Great Journey." The article calls the Communist Party's takeover of assets from farmers, craftsmen, and business owners after seizing power the socialist transformation of the three sectors. It quotes Xi Jinping saying, "This achieved a historic leap from socialist revolution to socialist construction." It includes a photo of 200,000 people celebrating the victory of socialist transformation in Tiananmen Square 70 years ago. At the end, it claims the exploration of that time provide solid institutional support and a valuable experience for today's Chinese-style modernization. It adds that this great change continues to inspire China to build a strong country and achieve national rejuvenation. Many readers called it one of the most terrifying articles they have read in years. It sent chills down their spines and left them in a cold sweat. Why? Let's look back at what the article means by the three major transformations. For farmers, the transformation started with the slogan "Overthrow the landlords and divide up their land." This drew farmers into the communist revolution. Millions of landlords were killed. Their land was given to farmers. But soon after, the party pushed people's communes. Farmers had to hand over the land again. That finished the socialist transformation of farmers. The socialist transformation of handicrafts and capitalist industry and commerce followed the same logic. Through methods like public-private partnerships, the private properties of business owners was taken by the state. In one-party rule China, the so-called state-owned or owned by the whole people does not mean real public ownership. The people is an abstract idea. Only those in power can control, use, and enjoy these assets. So the end of private ownership is not a paradise for wealth for everyone. It is the private division of stolen wealth by totalitarian plunderers. What did China experience after completing the socialist transformation? Everyone knows. There was the Great Famine that killed tens of millions. There was the Cultural Revolution that caused 7 million to over 20 million deaths. In the 1950s and 1960s, China was a place of extreme poverty for the people and a paradise for the privileged class. By the end of the Cultural Revolution, China's economy was already on the edge of collapse. Only then did Deng Xiaoping launch the so-called reform and opening up. Foreign capital and technology came in. People were allowed to make money and become rich to some degree. The Chinese people worked with huge enthusiasm after the slight loosening by the party. Joining the WTO brought global markets, technology, and funds. China grew fast for decades and became the world's second largest economy. But none of this changed the Communist Party's nature to communize the people and even spread communism worldwide. After Xi Jinping took power, he gradually centralized the power within the party. Step by step, but quickly, he brought China back to the Cultural Revolution era. This is why many Chinese people felt a chill when Xinhua published this article about the three major transformations. Some say this is just ideological talk. Times have changed. The party cannot seize private property as brutally as in the early days. But if we carefully review the party's actions in recent years, a second round of robbery, communization, has already begun. It just uses quieter, gradual methods. Here are 7 aspects that have happened or have clear precedents. The first method is party committees entering private companies plus mixed ownership reform. This is the slowest boiling frog method. It is hardest to call outright plunder. Since 2017, the party has forced private companies to set up party committees and write their decision-making power into company charters. Next comes mixed ownership reform. State capital takes shares. Private firms gradually become state-controlled mixed enterprises. They still look like listed companies, but are extensions of state assets. Many internet giants already face golden shares giving state entities veto power. Golden shares mean the state holds as little as 1% equity, but gets veto power on the board. Giants like ByteDance, TikTok, Kuaishou, Tencent, and Alibaba have given state-related funds board seats and veto rights through these shares. The second method is anti-corruption investigations and assets freezes. Targeted entrepreneurs face corruption or tax evasion investigations. Assets are frozen and the person detained. They are then voluntarily forced to transfer equity to state entities or accept state investment to regain freedom. It wears a legal coat but is really political purge plus assets transfer. Examples include Summit China founder Sun Hongbin and Jack Ma of Alibaba. The third method is administrative licenses and regulatory strangulation. No direct seizure. Instead, revoke licenses, deny renewals, limit financing, or force products off shelves. This pushes companies into trouble. Then state capital rescues them at low prices. The tutoring industry is a classic case. One administrative order nearly wiped it out. Market value dropped over 90%. The fourth method is voluntary donation and common prosperity levies. Political pressure forces entrepreneurs to voluntarily donate to state funds, charities, or local governments or share profits with employees. On the surface, voluntary. In reality, it is a political extraction of wealth. During the 2021 Common Prosperity Peak, Tencent, Alibaba, and others announced donations of tens of billions. The timing matched political pressure perfectly. The fifth method is the nationalization of data and platforms. For technology platforms, the most important assets is not factories, it is data. Through laws such as the Data Security Law and the Personal Information Protection Law, the CCP has already created legal space. This space allows the state to force companies to place key data under the custody of state-owned institutions. Once data is nationalized, the company's core competitiveness is essentially taken away. What remains is only an empty brand. During the removal and rectification of Didi, China's largest ride-hailing platform, its core data was already under the real control of regulatory agencies. The sixth method is wartime economic mobilization legislation. The 2021 revised National Defense Mobilization Law and related rules give the state power to requisition all private assets in emergency situations. If Taiwan Strait tensions rise or internal crises hit, this can justify full nationalization of certain private sectors without normal procedures. It is a last resort, but the legal tools are ready. The seventh method is to settle the original sin account. Almost all Chinese private business built their early wealth in the legal gray areas of the 1990s and 2000s. No price land deals, off-books funds, accounting tricks, and policy edge-walking were common survival tactics. The party kept all records but did not settle them until now. The original SIM card is usually played in 3 steps. First, authorities open an investigation under charges such as tax evasion, bribery, or illegal business operations. Second, they freeze assets and restrict travel. This causes the entrepreneur to lose real control over the company. Third, they negotiate. State capital enters the company under the name of helping the company getting through difficulties. The entrepreneur then pleads guilty or transfers shares in exchange for lenient treatment. The most poisonous part of this card is that it leaves the victim with no way to appeal. If the entrepreneur resists publicly, it is equal to admitting the historic stain. If he stays silent and accepts the arrangement, he cooperates with a property transfer packaged as a judicial process. More fundamentally, this does not only threaten the person involved, it creates a chilling effect across the entire private business class. The original sin logic does not need to be used often. It only needs to hang there. That alone is enough to make people surrender in advance. All 7 paths share one feature. They never call it nationalization. Party committees are strengthening party building. Mixed reform is optimizing ownership structure. Regulation is standardizing industrial development. Donations are fulfilling social responsibilities. Data hosting is safeguarding national security. Anti-corruption is governing by law. Original sin reckoning is purifying the business environment. Each step has a proper narrative and stays within legal frameworks. The result is systematic transfer of private wealth to state power. Private enterprises in China now contribute over 60% of GDP, more than 70% of technological innovation, and over 80% of urban jobs. Large-scale property erosion would be surgical destruction of the economic foundation. But Xi Jinping's logic has never been efficiency first. It is control first and security first. Economic costs are acceptable if political control strengthens. China's economy is now in a deep structural crisis. Local finances exhausted, real estate debt exploding, banking systematic risk exposed, private sector confidence collapsed, youth unemployment high, and consumption weak. The whole system sits on the edge of collapse again. Facing sharp and hard to resolve social contradictions, the party can no longer rely on market mechanism and the rule of law. It turns to its favorite tools, political mobilization and forced plunder. The so-called new round of public-private partnerships is not a normal economic adjustment. It is the political action to recontrol and redistribute private capital, wealth, and social resources under dual fiscal and ruling crisis. At this moment, Xinhua suddenly praises the public-private owned partnerships from over 70 years ago. It packages the systematic seizure of private capital as historic progress and institutional victory. The political signal is clear. The party is creating public opinion legitimacy for a new round of state plunder of private capital. It sends a dangerous message. Under the logic that regime security comes above all, private property rights are never inviolable. They are resources the party state can requisition, transform, or swallow at any time. In communist ruled China, there is a saying, prepare public opinion first. Mao Zedong first said that to overthrow a regime, you must first create public opinion and do ideological work. Later, it was summed up as lay the groundwork in public opinion first, or build the propaganda narrative first. Since then, the CCP has had a fixed pattern. Before any big move, it shapes public opinion first. It makes people see it as the party's direction. It pushes society to unify its thinking. Then it prepares the ground for the next political move. It unifies thinking and paves the way for action. Therefore, for people inside China, especially private entrepreneurs, if one day the party suddenly announces a second socialist transformation and seizes their property, they should not be surprised at all. For the international community it must recognize that the CCP's operating logic is completely different from that of normal societies. Never expect it to become a normal member of the international community. We must always stay highly vigilant about whether the CCP will take more extreme measures to control society or even provoke wars abroad if the economy worsens further. Well, that's all for today. Please leave comments, share, and like to help the algorithm spread our voices further, or go to my website at jenniferzengblog.com to sign up for a membership or make a donation. Thank you very much for your support. See you next time.